Hey there, it's Mr. Barry here at GCTV, and we're about to do a little bit of podcasting. We're going to talk once again with Nick Majenka. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. You know, it's cool.
Since we were talking about music, I put a little music in the beginning there, and I know I'm dating myself, but that was a little bit of Bob Dylan, one of my favorite records of all time.
Yeah, I mean, Bob Dylan, I've listened to his debut album, and it has that nice 60s counterculture vibe to it. You know?
So wait, say that again. How old are you?
I'm 19.
So you're 19 and you've listened to Bob Dylan's. I mean, I'm not sure I could go into this building right now and find another teenager in this building who's listened to Bob Dylan's first album. So
I mean,
that just impressed me immensely, just so you know that.
Well, surprisingly, I like a lot of old music, you know?
Right.
I listen to a bunch of 90s music, and I think and every decade can have music that can, become famous or
so far.
Or become the 2010s had a lot of great music, obviously, but the 1960s and 50s had a lot of interesting music, like Frank Sinatra. I listened to him actually, and
what made you pick up Bob Dylan's debut album?
I watched a bunch of movies from the 60s, and I thought maybe listening to an album from that era can make me feel like I'm from that era, in the 60s.
Well, that's well put. I mean, for me, the big deal with me is, I was born in '68, but that makes me born in the '60s, but it doesn't make me a child of the '60s.
I mean, you're a '70s baby,
right? I was a '70s baby, exactly. But I had a brother who was 8 years older than me, who was born in 1960, and I inherited a lot of his musical tastes because that's what was playing in my house.
Exactly, because my dad likes Pink Floyd, and I got into Pink Floyd because of him. So yeah,
wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I just Pink Floyd. I'm sure most people know about them. I mean, they're this this band that was birthed psychedelic music back in the day. I mean, they basically pioneered psychedelic rock music, and I'm sure that obviously the Beatles did that with Saint
Sgt. Pepper, yeah.
Sgt. Pepper, which was a very amazing album, which
right.
That album was well-known psychedelic stuff, and I mean they had two psychedelic stuffs, but but Pink Floyd, I think that I feel like no one can really come close to them. I mean I'm sure anyone can. I guess that's
well, no, don't say that. I think you might be right. There's some of Pink Floyd's records are the most successful selling records of all time.
Of course you're listening to this and you're like, how do you record stuff like this? And
right.
Yeah, I mean.
I think, Sgt. Pepper was the groundbreaking record for that era because, without getting too scientific about music, they only had 4 tracks to record on, So, when you go into a studio, one track is the singer, one track is the piano player, one track is the guitar player. And, nowadays you can have as many tracks as you want, essentially, but they only had 4 to work with. And that's why people were listening to Sgt. Pepper back then and saying, I don't understand how they did this. How did they do this? And they just broke new ground. Yes. Then I think Pink Floyd took it to the next level in their music. Dark Side of the Moon is So what Pink Floyd records have you listened to?
I like.
Or is it more a song thing?
I listened to almost all of their albums. I mean, I started listening to their albums back in 2020, and I like their album. I think I like their album "Wish You Were Here." I mean,
yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, I mean that album was. I'm really interested in long songs, and that album has 2 long songs.
Yeah,
but long songs, in my opinion, I honestly like them because they take you into this whole world. They're very different from the usual songs you listen to, and it's they take you into this whole other world that most songs can't really do.
No, absolutely. Have you ever listened to The Wall?
Yeah, of course. I mean, who has?
Who hasn't? A lot of the kids in this building haven't discovered The Wall. I wish more of them would.
I mean, yeah, they're more interested in a lot of rap music, and,
right?
But I don't care. I mean,
right, I'm not going to bash rap music, but I would love some more kids to have listened to something like The Wall. The Wall is a story.
Have more intricate music taste. I guess, but we're not here to bash music because that's not what we do.
No. Right. I'm not going to bash any music.
Yeah, I mean,
I listen. There's rap music in my on my CD shelf at home, and and on my Apple
yeah.
playlist, and then there's a lot of I'm a much more of a 60s and 70s classic rock guy because once again that's what my brother really introduced me to.
My dad likes classic rock and heavy metal. I think. Yeah. I mean, like he likes Led Zeppelin. I mean, Led Zeppelin is cool. I mean,
Oh yeah, Led Zeppelin's very cool.
And also,
I would say so.
Oh yeah, Metallica's awesome. I think. I mean, or maybe not awesome, but yeah, but
No, Metallica's pretty awesome actually.
yeah, they are. They're.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah.
you could say that.
I listened to like a couple. I listened to like 3 of their albums, and I think they're like, and I get. I mean, I like their album "From Whom the Bell Tolls."
Yeah.
That's probably like. And I like the album cover. It's like very blue and reminds you of like old school internet aesthetics, in my opinion. I don't know why, but it's just I just like that album cover. It just like it's so blue, and I like the color blue.
Metallica is one of the biggest bands in the world. I mean, really.
I mean, yeah, it's cool. I mean,
Wow. So you do your tastes drift is what you're saying. They're kind of all over the place.
yeah. I mean, my taste is all over the place. I mean, I like some rock. I mean, I mean, rock. I guess isn't. I mean, heavy metal isn't really my big thing. I mean, but because it's just like at the same time, I have a brother who likes metal, but
Right.
at the same, I don't care if he likes it, obviously. But to be honest, like, I just think that like I just can't like really relate to metal music sometimes.
That's an entire other musical universe. Like the founding metal bands, Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne and Zeppelin and Deep Purple, like that's the kind of stuff that I knew a lot. They kind of gave birth to
Like
this sound. But then I never drifted into the heavy metal world. But in college, when I went to college, I was a radio major first, and the radio station at CW Post at the time was heavy metal on the weekends, all heavy metal. It was the only New York station playing heavy metal.
Oh yeah.
So I got a big taste of it, and this was the '80s when metal was huge, and Motley Crue, and people wearing the big hairdos, of Poison, and all that sort of stuff. That was huge. But then there's a whole other side of metal, the real hard stuff, the real heavy stuff,
Like death metal.
like death metal, and
and also
so
and there's also this genre called, which I guess this might be weird to discuss, black metal. Which,
black metal, yeah.
Yeah, but honestly, I'm not really interested in that genre, to be honest. Like, I mean, I think I read in like YouTube comments that like I don't know. I just like I remember reading that some people aren't really willing to listen to it. I remember reading this article where I think it mentioned that some people aren't really willing to like try it sometimes. I guess I mean I don't care if some people like it. I mean I don't care, but to be honest, I just think it really isn't for me. I just like rap music because I think it feels like my home. I don't know, or I
You
don't
like rap music, you're saying, because it feels like your home.
or I don't know if that makes sense. But
Oh, that makes sense.
I mean, I mainly like more calming. I mean, I mainly like more chill music. Like there's chill hip hop, obviously.
Yes, there is, totally.
And there's R&B. R&B is like I love R&B in my opinion. Like,
Oh,
like,
great.
you know R&B music?
I do.
Yeah, it's like more chill music. I mean, mainly,
Absolutely.
it's like more chill. Like it's like music that was obviously invented by like African Americans.
Right, rhythm and blues.
Yeah, rhythm.
People
and
don't
blues.
even realize that that's what that means. R&B. When you tell them R&B, they just know it's a genre. But it's it's rhythm and blues, and blues is the basis for classic rock. And and there would be no heavy metal. There'd be no nothing that we're listening to nowadays without the blues and jazz and the early American rock.
Yeah, the early American rock, of course. These are music that is what I consider distinctively American music.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Now let me go back. So R&B, technically, in modern R&B is more like contemporary R&B or maybe alternative R&B, as they call it, as I call it, or I guess, or as Wikipedia calls it. I don't know.
Right.
But at the same time, modern R&B is you wouldn't call it rhythm and blues. I mean,
No, I know what you're saying.
you just call it R&B. I mean, I like R&B because it's like mainly it's obviously about like romance, but I honestly like it. It's like more chill. I mean, especially the 2000s and the 90s R&B. Those are like the best eras of R&B in my opinion. I mean, I think everyone else can agree really because I think I don't know.
So who? Tell me who.
I don't know. Just people on the internet. I think I don't know.
No, tell me what's your early '90s R&B that you listen to? Do you have people that?
It depends. I mean, I've listened to like a ton of like Maxwell and Usher.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Maxwell is cool. I think he's like this. I've listened to like one album of his, and it's like very like it's like soul music basically, but it's also R&B also. So
Right.
It's like I guess you can say it can be the inventor of modern day alternative R&B, which I guess could mean yeah, that basically soul music from the '90s possibly maybe invented what we call modern day R&B, like Bryson Tiller. I don't know, or maybe I'm just not making sense here.
No, I think you're totally making sense. Don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I just, I like all kinds. I just like some types of music. Like I'm not really into big. I'm not really a big metal guy, but I
Right.
just I'm not. But I don't care if people like it. But
No, of course not. Yeah, metal. And it wasn't because of the radio station, but I guess I got a little overdosed of it in the '80s because it wasn't what I grew up with, and then I had to deal with it on the weekends when I was working at the radio station, and I didn't really get into it too much. I really appreciate a lot of the bands because I can tell who has talent, who has skill, and who are good songwriters. I thought Guns N' Roses was incredible when they came out. That first album was a monster.
That's amazing.
Metallica. I don't really I don't go home and listen to Iron Maiden, but I know that those guys are seriously talented.
Yeah,
and they forged their own path in rock and roll, and I respect them enormously for that. I love AC/DC, but I think that's a different category. I don't really consider them metal. I just consider them loud rock and roll.
I mean, that's what they consider themselves, actually.
Yeah, I don't think they would say that. Oh, we're a metal band, because I actually don't think they are a metal band.
I agree with what you say because I'm sure metal bands can be talented. I mean, yeah, they're talented. A lot of them. I mean, especially like classic metal, probably.
Right.
Like Metallica or Led Zeppelin. I mean, Led Zeppelin's like classic rock, obviously, but I think classic rock can be more my thing. I mean, like especially because it makes you feel proud that you're like American, I think.
Mm-hmm. No, I hear you. It was funny, I come from a very different world than you're in at the moment, because in high school, which was for me 82 to 86, rap just had come out, and before it blew up and became the biggest thing ever, which it eventually did, black students listened to rap, and the white kids in my high school didn't. And there was a clear delineation between, the white kids don't listen to rap. They just didn't. And then all of a sudden, those doors got broken down, thankfully.
Because of Eminem.
Because, back then it was really Run DMC. Run DMC did an album with Aerosmith, and, Walk This Way. They did Walk This Way, and all of a sudden, one of the heaviest rock and roll bands of all time was on a rap song.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it knocked down a lot of walls, and a lot of people in my high school were like, you know what, I can listen to that. That actually sounds like fun. And Run DMC was probably one of the few rap bands that I really liked and got into back then, because I thought they were telling fun stories. They were storytellers.
I mean, yeah, that's what rap is. It's poetry. My dad told me that. My dad told me this little poem, like, oh, do you like poetry? No. Do you like music? No. Yes, I do. Let me tell you something. Music is poetry.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's just something he told me. It was like a little story. He didn't tell it to me, but he told it to me technically. But I just had that in my head ever since.
Turn off the Bob Dylan record and just go read his lyrics, and you'd be like, that man's a poet. That man wrote poetry. Clearly he was. I don't know if he's recognized obviously as a songwriter, but I don't know if people call him a poet enough, and he is. He's 100%. Bob Dylan wrote poetry, and I think he may be the greatest songwriter that America has ever produced.
I mean, yeah, but regardless of race or culture, you can still, you can still like feel what they're trying to say, I guess.
So what will you listen, like today we're going to leave here, and maybe you'll go home and you'll chill out a little bit, and what do you put on? Like, what's your go-to? Is it change every day, or do you have something that you're going to go home tonight, let's say, and you know what, I feel like listening to that.
Sometimes I feel like listening to R&B music.
Okay, so you said that, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
I just have a different.
Does it change?
No. It's
like tomorrow night, if you went home, you might feel differently, and you might put something else on, or are you pretty consistent?
To be honest, I don't know.
I mean, because I think about myself. My brother was a guitar player and a musician, and so music was always in my house, and I grew up with it. And like I said, the classic rock of the 60s and 70s, that's my big thing. And I'm a huge Grateful Dead fan. I've seen the Grateful Dead, proper Grateful Dead, before Jerry Garcia died, about 45 times, and then I've seen the rest of the Grateful Dead members probably close to 200 times. So like I know me tonight, if I'm going to go home, I'll probably chill out and listen to some Grateful Dead, or I'll listen to Bruce Springsteen, the Beatles.
I think I'll chill out and listen to some Tank, or Yeah, he's another R&B musician. I'll chill and listen to Tank,
Mm-hmm.
or I'll chill and listen to some, maybe sorry, this is kind of a hard question.
Yeah, it's a very hard question. I know. It's what's good is that I think it's a good question, a good thing that it's so hard for you to answer because it means you have a lot of musical taste and I'm not pigeonholing you as a one kind of music fan. That's a great thing. Good for you.
I mean, yeah,
You know?
I like exploring genres because I just like I remember when I first tried heavy metal. I mean, it was like this is like recently. I mean, like since I'm usually into exploring genres. I tried metal I tried Slipknot. I tried Korn. I tried let's see, Metallica, of course. I tried all the said stuff like Led Zeppelin, or I tried a lot of classic music, like because that's what. And oh yeah, and of course, I tried Pink Floyd first, and which I think was my first ever time. To be honest, I think Pink Floyd is what got me really into listening to music more. I don't know why, but I think during the pandemic, I just started listening to a bunch of classic Pink Floyd records, and I was just like, maybe I should listen to music like this more often.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Pink
think
Floyd's wonderful. I've seen Roger Waters twice.
really live.
Yeah, I saw him in Boston with my daughter, and then I saw him here at Nassau Coliseum when he did the whole wall in its entirety, and that was a dream of mine to see that perform live because when the wall came out in the 80s, everybody in the early 80s, every one of my friends, we all listened to that album backwards and forwards, and we were all drawing the characters on our notebooks, and it was such a huge thing for me, but I didn't get to see it performed live then, and then they broke up, and then they got angry at each other. So to see him put that show on was really huge for me.
They probably broke up like many times.
Yes, yeah, they're one of those famous fighting bands that just can't seem to keep it together anymore, no matter what they do.
They just can't seem to like think things out
Right.
straight.
And then I saw Pink Floyd without Roger Waters, because listen, it's the songs, and David Gilmour is a wonderful guitar player. So I enjoyed seeing those 3 times. 1 Pink Floyd, 2 Roger Waters, really fantastic shows. Good part of my life listening to that band.
Yeah, of course. I mean, The Wall, I guess, is probably a big experience, like live, like a Daft Punk concert. I assume.
It's theatrical.
Yeah, it's theatrical. Daft
Totally.
Punk.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Daft Punk. I mean, my sister likes Daft Punk, and honestly, and also I remember listening to them, of course, like their album, Homework. No, not their album Home. I think it was their album. I forgot the name, but it has the song One More Time, which is a very, very catchy song even to this day. Oh yeah, it's called Discovery, the album. It's like this whole album has this like movie, like it's one of those albums that have like a movie with that like goes with the album, like the songs play with it, like it's like this, it's like this whole anime film, and it's like and all the songs are in the movie, and it like plays along as a story,
That's cool. Yeah, I don't know that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a pretty underrated film, but I recommend it because if you're interested in exploring different genres of music, maybe you can give Daft Punk a try.
I certainly could. Yeah. You know what's striking me right now with this discussion with you? Really, I've been working here for 27 years, and I've felt that, and I grew up with albums. When like the new U2 album came out in high school, we all went out and bought it. And I hear you mentioning a lot of albums right now, which is really making me really happy because I feel like a lot of kids nowadays, let's say, or teenagers, don't know so much about the album as they do about the song.
Well,
they know about the song, but you seem to be mentioning a lot of albums, which is really, that makes me happy that you're listening to full albums or checking out the whole album. And Pink Floyd, I think, inspired me to like just try more. I wasn't like a big like album listener back then. I think but I think. I listened to Pink Floyd back in 2020. I listened to like a bunch of their albums, and I think I just sort of gave up on that. And then I remember watching YouTube videos of saying like how albums are saying like how like the beauty of albums or whatever. And then I just got inspired, and that's how I just started listening to the whole album. Like Frank Ocean's Blonde. I mean, Frank Ocean's Blonde is like the most well-known internet album, I think. Right.
Okay. Obviously, if you go on Instagram, or I mean, you probably obviously don't, but I remember going on Instagram, but. And there's like all these posts of like albums and stuff, and like possibly people my age who listen to albums, or I don't know. I mean,
I hope so. That's great. You know, there was always something about, you know, getting that. I'm looking at a 3 milk crates full of records right now across in the podcast studio, and it's when we used to go get a record and bring it home and look at it and look at the pictures and then look at what they wrote inside, and you know,
Yeah,
it was a real experience, and I don't know if that's just dwindling on people or not nowadays. Or
well, it actually is. Speaking of that, I mean, there's this YouTuber called Nathan Zed. He posts these videos which really inspired me about like music and stuff. Like, for example, he talked about like he made a video about album cover art, and which is like he talks about how just one picture can just drag you into the whole album, like
completely.
yeah. Like for example, of course he talked about how like of course how those albums so iconic that even if they're so iconic, they're probably like so iconic that even if you can look at them without even listening to the music, like you probably
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
What I mean is that you've probably seen those iconic covers even if you haven't listened to the music. Kind of like you probably know this iconic theme from a movie even if you haven't watched the movie.
Right, 100%. Now listen, I come from the era, you know, in like 7th and 8th grade, you know, when we all got denim jackets, where everyone went and painted an album cover on the back of their jacket, you know, and like because the album art was something, it meant something to you.
Yeah, like how can you decide on just one picture, like I said,
To represent the whole album,
and, like,
right?
represents, like for example, like an album cover. Oh yeah, he said in the video that every song has a color. Like every song has a feeling that is associated with the color, and that can be showed on the cover. You know,
Nice.
like for example, like Purple Rain by Prince has like blue on the cover. So, you know, you're probably thinking, oh, I'm going to listen to an album with blue songs or songs that make me feel like I'm hearing the color blue, which I guess doesn't make sense. But, you know, it's
No,
like,
I think it kind of does make sense, actually.
yeah. Or maybe you're listening to an album cover that has has like red all over it. And you're probably like, oh, so this album cover is, or these songs are red. So you just like, and it has like this red feel to it. Like for example,
I hope it's not a dying art because you know I feel like now that you know we went from albums, you know, record albums to CDs, and the pictures were just smaller, but then they went completely gone.
No, that's not true actually, because there's a bunch of pop albums or that like showcase all these really pretty album covers, and like for example, like Billie Eilish's "Hit Me Hard and Soft" that's her new album, by the way, and it has like this very blue like look to the cover, and you're probably thinking, one thing about some artists is that they can like change their look to like, which would mean the start of a brand new era. Like for example,
Right.
like for example, in the first era, you're probably in Billie Eilish's first era, she was like yellow and stuff like that, and she had like yellow backgrounds. And in her second era, she was doing black. She was doing like blacks like black colors, of course.
Right.
And in her third era, she was doing like these more like sepia themed kind of thing, or maybe like greenish. I don't
Right.
know. Or and of course for her latest era, she's doing blue. So, you know, and of course they can be showcased on the album cover.
Right,
For
right.
example, like since her latest album cover is purple or blue, you're probably thinking, oh, so I think I'm going to be listening to something that makes me feel like I'm. I hope this makes me feel like I'm underwater or something. And it doesn't.
Wow, yeah, nice.
And it can't disappoint, of course. Like,
No. Wow, that was deep.
I mean, yeah.
So music, obviously, we're going to end on a positive note, of course. But so music does something
Music like changes.
for you, obviously.
I mean, it just changes people. It just makes me like look in the bright side of life. You know, like
Yes.
especially like hip hop and pop, like or like R&B or soul, like all these different genres like can make you look in, or maybe even like shoegaze or like let's see, dream pop. They can like make you look at like life in like a more different way. I mean, I guess it's sounding a little dramatic, but you know,
I don't think it's dramatic at all. I think it's necessary.
I think, you know, like look at that album cover right there. Like, what do you feel when
Yeah.
you see that album cover?
Well, yeah, what we're looking at on my phone is a picture of Blood on the Tracks. That's one of Bob Dylan's most famous albums.
What colors do you see?
Well, there's red.
And
I've always thought of red when I think of this album cover. You're right.
see what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're thinking. It's like how I think of blue or purple when I listen to
Right.
the new Billie Eilish album. So that's exactly what we all need to feel sometimes with a song.
Yep,
where,
and this is his breakup album. This is his album about the deterioration of his marriage.
oh really?
Yeah, it's intense.
Wow.
It's great. I mean, it's you know, the man pours his whole heart out on
guess
this,
you
on
could
this
say it's
you know, was it 8 songs or 9 songs, and it's just
Probably his most personal album.
100%. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, it's kind of like how Michael Jackson's History is his most personal
very
album.
personal.
Michael Jackson. You know, I read in his biography that, you know, obviously he went through a lot, like he went through a lot of, obviously, which, you know, obviously everyone can go through that, but, you know, at the same time he would pour his soul into an album, and of course, like, for example, the album History, and that whole album is like talking about like all the stuff he went through, and ever since like Dangerous came out, and of course, you know, and honestly, you know, that he considered that album like a storybook. And, you know, I think that, and it's like since he considered it, musical book, he considered it like a musical book.
Right.
I don't remember much, but, you know, I think that's all I remember. He called it a musical book, and he called it his most personal album.
Yeah.
You know, because of like all the stuff he was struggling with at the time. If he wasn't struggling with that stuff, he wouldn't make it on the album.
No, right. And, you know, a lot of people, unfortunately, let's say, but fortunately, you know, produce some of their greatest works of art when they're going through something emotional.
Magnum opus. I mean, yeah, that's actually a good thing, because that means you're human.
Right.
You're very human with this songs and your stuff. You know, I mean, you gotta just be very, very, very human with all these songs. Like how Bob Dylan became so human when he made this album. You know?
Yep.
Like
absolutely.
Like he showcased like very like differing stuff about human conditions and stuff like that, which I think can really like make a song or an album better. You know, it's kind of like how Billie Eilish on her latest project poured her soul out, and it's very, very cool. I mean, like, I just love when artists and actors are personal with their stuff.
I do too, and it does something to the listener, because most people can identify with some of those emotions they've gone through. You know, Bob Dylan's not the only person who's ever broken up with someone. I mean, and so, you know, you can go through that pain too, but you can find something really joyful out of it. Like, this album I can listen to this album forever. I'm never going to get tired of this album. And I know it's sad on his part, but there's some joyous songs on here too. They just make me feel good. So, which is a great thing.
And so this is the music podcast of Nicholas Majeka and Mr. Barry.
Yep.
And so I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and just remember that one picture drags you into the entire picture.
Yep. So, pick up an album, look at it, and then listen to it. And
just look into it. Just look at it closely, and just think about it. That's all. And then listen to the album, and you'll feel like you've been blown away by what you've seen. Okay?
Cool. Catch us next time when we'll be talking about something else personal, I hope.
Yep. Let's hope we do that.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and ciao.
Saxophone someplace far